Hello and welcome to Panels and Bars, the show where we talk about all things geek and comic book related, whether that's movies, video games, or anything else. In the past few weeks, we started watching a lot of sci-fi classics from James Cameron, and that led us onto a weird path where from watching that, we then watched True Lies, and after watching True Lies, we realized just how amazing a comic actor Arnold Schwarzenegger was. And so we decided we were going to watch three of his films, which we're covering this week. I'm your host, BB Manic, and if you're a long-time watcher, you might know that my co-host Patrick always likes to do something to sabotage the opening of these episodes. So to combat that this week, I have muted his audio, and I've also covered his face on the screen with a copy of Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' seminal classic, Watchmen. So now that's out of the way, Patrick, how's everything going? He's fine. I got the intro out of the way.
Yeah, it's all right.
So in this week...
so you couldn't see me repeatedly changing the colour of my light?
Could not. Because I knew you would do something... I knew you would do something stupid.
Well, that was really, really uncomfortable for me to reach round to where the light changes colour. I wish you'd fucking told me.
I mean...
Before I gave it the old reach around.
I'm playing the world's smallest violin for you and your repeated attempts to sabotage our podcast. But yeah, so in this week, I'm calling it the Schwarzenegger-Thon. We watched Twins, Kindergarten Cop, and The Last Action Hero. The Last Action Hero is probably the one I had the fondest memories of. Twins, I've always felt a bit take it or leave it, and Kindergarten Cop is a solid classic for me. Now, what was interesting on this rewatch was that my opinion shifted on two of those. So, let's start with Twins.
What? No. Let's not start with Twins. What order did you watch them in?
I think probably the order I was going to say we should do them in, which was Twins, Kindergarten Cop, and then Last Action Hero.
That's insane. I watched Kindergarten Cop first.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty sure it was going to be like the most mid of them. And then I watched Last Action Hero because I didn't know what to expect, because I could barely remember it. And then I watched Twins because I knew it was going to be a straight banger, because it's like one of the greatest comedy movies of all time.
So it's funny to me because, like I said, Twins was always kind of like, nah, whatever. And I loved The Last Action Hero as a kid. I watched it so many times. Upon the rewatch, and obviously we'll get into them project by project, Twins, I'm like, oh man, where's this been my whole life? And Last Action Hero I still love, but it has some flaws that are a lot more obvious to me as an adult. So what do you want to start with? Kindergarten Cop, I remain unchanged. I've always loved that film.
Let's start with Kindergarten Cop then, because I also remain largely unchanged. I think what I really like about Kindergarten Cop is the soundtrack. Like, it starts off and they're driving to wherever, and it's just got this like, it sounds like fucking Supermarket Sweep or something. It's amazing. And that soundtrack just kind of permeates the whole film throughout. So what I'd forgotten about Kindergarten Cop is it's quite violent.
It is, yeah.
I kind of remembered it as like a fun kids movie.
Yeah, I'd forgotten because obviously the whole setup hinges upon him being an undercover cop. And you remember so much of the fun teacher parts. You forget that he is playing this cat and mouse game with a violent killer.
Yeah. And the guy just murders somebody straight up at the start, and then he handcuffs this guy's girlfriend to his corpse. And when I started it and it was a 15, I was all like, huh.
Yeah.
I remember watching this when I was about 10. And thinking it was like a fun time.
Well, I feel like it was always on BBC in the afternoon. So the fact that just like people are beaten to a pulp in this, and even the ending, which we'll get to, is like, wow.
They must have edited some of it out for TV. Right? Like they can't. 100%. That like the gunshots at the end are brutal. They're really, really horrible. But no, I think as with all three of these, I think what I'm going to say is that like the thing that separates Arnold from other action heroes, and especially modern ones, is that he's got this kind of complete willingness to be very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him feel like a more well-rounded actor and person than most people, than most action heroes. So in this, like, I love the opening scene where he's just playing a standard Schwarzenegger film character.
I'm a cop, you idiot.
He's got the sunglasses, he's got a big gun, he's got a trench coat, he's got a beard.
Nice he looks beard, his little stubble.
Yeah, he looks terrifying.
Yeah.
And then I like the scene where he doesn't want to have a partner. It's just such a classic fucking piece of like.
I'm so glad you said that, because they dispense with that very quickly, which I'm very happy with. I as much as I love the actress and as much as I love the initial tension, I feel like other lesser films would have been very compelled to do a buddy cop, oh, not this guy thing for a lot longer than they do. And very quickly, when they're undercover, they kind of establish respect for each other and the rapport grows really quickly.
Yeah, it's also I really really like on the plane right at the start. There's that sequence with the two children are behind him, and like it's just such a nice little subtle way to establish that he hates children. You know,
Yeah.
like, and the thing is that the children in the scene are very irritating. So it's not like
This
it's
guy's a
unreasonable,
monster. Yeah.
but he's bad at dealing with the children.
Yeah.
And like I think it's really funny that the entire setup of the plot is they have to go undercover, but she gets food poisoning, and then he's just like, and I was expecting a bit where she was all like, "You have to go and be the teacher," and he's all like, "No, I don't want to be a teacher." But instead, she wakes up in the morning and he's just shaved himself and got ready to go be a teacher, and he's all
Yeah.
like, "Looks like I'm going to have to do it."
Yeah, because he's a
Um,
professional.
yeah, and I really enjoyed that. Obviously, the stuff with the kids is funny. Now, in our classic segment, what's problematic? There were some lines when he arrived at the school where the mums were all like,
He
"He's a
must be gay
man
if he's a
who
teacher.
teaches. He must be gay." And that bit where the mum was all like, "I'm really worried about my son. He's playing with dolls, and his dad ran away with another man." And then Arnold's all like, "Don't worry, he's using the doll to look up their skirts." And she's all
He's
like, "Oh,
just a
phew."
pervert.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh God, I was worried he might be gay, but as it turns out, he's just a little budding incel rapist." So that's relaxing, isn't it?
Yeah, that stuff
Um,
I've made super well.
yeah, that stuff's aged really badly. But outside of that, I thought
Yeah.
that in general, it's kind of a charming story. I mean, I
One
gotta
thing I wanted
say,
to say, sorry, I just want to say one thing, and if I'm wrong, someone correct me in the comments. But as far as I can tell, this is the only one of Arnold's like big action films from his heyday that actually casts him as someone from Austria. Because
yeah,
most of these films, he's just Johnny whoever from California, and his accent is never acknowledged, and he's just taken as an all-American guy, which I'm fine with. But I actually really like that they highlight that a bit and they talk about it, and obviously it means that his partner initially has to do the very funny accent. Um,
yeah. Well, and there's a bit where he picks her up and carries her into the house where he says something in German, and I
yeah,
and I was like, I think that's the only time I've ever heard him speak German, which
yeah,
is really, really weird, isn't it?
yeah.
Like,
Because this is the thing. In this film, people say where you're from. He's like, I grew up in Austria. In other films, they say where you're from. He's like, he's from California. So I mean, it's funny because as you've seen in the last episode, every time you look at the IMDb trivia for any of these films from this period, one of the things is Arnold has said many times this is his favorite film, and I don't
yeah,
even think that's
obviously.
BS. It's probably like he was having such a great run of films. It's like this is my favorite film. No, now this is my favorite film. So they are probably true, but it's hard to know which one to believe. But I wouldn't have trouble believing this because once again, you can tell everyone's having a bunch of fun, and like you said, this is just a more vulnerable role for him. He's showing a lot more of his range as well. He really is jumping back and forth from like hard boiled cop to really funny physical comedy. And then he has the
Yeah,
vulnerable moments when he's talking about his upbringing. And there's a great moment which is like his character act, like when I say his character acting, his character, the character of John Kimball acting. A minute ago, he told us that he's seasoned and he's very experienced with undercover work. And then someone asked him about his history as a teacher, and he just effortlessly lies about his history, the experience he's had, and what led him to work in kindergarten, and he doesn't blink. And so it's very subtle things that tell you just who he is and how dedicated he is to the job and how professional he is.
yeah. There's a scene where one of the kids asked him to read a story to them, and it's a story he used to read to his son, and the way he just transitions from being in that role as the police officer undercover to being like completely vulnerable and clearly devastated about his relationship with his son,
Yeah,
and then it gets overwhelming for him and he just has to stop, is really good. It's
yeah,
really, really good. I also think, in stark contrast to the majority of action films and the majority of, in fairness, a lot of his films, the way that his chemistry builds with the female lead is actually really nice.
it
They
is.
meet, they flirt, they look at each other, they smile. It seems like they actually like each other.
Yeah,
They're like, his partner has to give him a little push, and like I think that's like it's really nicely done.
One thing I
And
like as well about his backstory and the relationship with his son is there would be a real temptation to be like, oh, I was doing this and doing this, but his mom was a bitch and blah, blah. And it's like, no, he was too dedicated to the job. He didn't invest in time in his marriage. He didn't invest time in being a father. And the failings in that relationship are down to him. You know,
yeah,
the mother had to move the son for the good of the child because he just wasn't really committed to being a proper father. And he owns up to that in the end.
and he's fully willing to admit that and talk
Yeah.
about it. And like, there's that really nice scene when one of the kids asks, like, it says that when dads aren't there for their kids, it's because they don't care about them. And he's all like, no, it's not about that. It's the dad that's the problem, which is
Yeah.
like it's such a nice message to have.
Yeah.
I think that the line, oh, that's my ferret, is probably the funniest thing in the entire
Yeah.
film. Like,
Also, the
and
ferret, what a great plot device.
it's such a weird detail for that man who's a hard-boiled cop and doesn't want to have any emotional attachments to have that ferret that he loves so much.
But I think that's why it's great because clearly underneath the surface, he does want to have the attachment. And this is something that depends on him and can't leave him. And also doesn't take a massive bit of commitment on his part. He can be a cop and then go home and there is someone waiting for him.
He can just
And
keep
then
that ferret in his car,
just keep that ferret in his
apparently.
car, but then it helps him break the ice with the kids, and later on
Yep.
it saves his life. It's a fantastic plot device.
Well, I also love that he says it doesn't bite when he first introduces it to the kids, and obviously it only bites once in the film when the villain is attacking him. And I love that detail. Like, the ferret's his mate.
Yeah.
I think that the montage of him winning over the kids and learning to be a teacher is really, really great.
Yeah.
I think that the scene where he beats up that dad who's been abusing the kid, and
It's
then the head
fantastic.
teacher's all like, you're a great teacher and I'm really proud of you. Like, again, I think what I really appreciate about this is that, like, the pace is really nice. So it starts off and it's like, okay, so the problem is that he's not very good at being a teacher. And then the next day he goes in and he's all like, well, better use my experience as a police officer to become a better teacher. And then he just does.
Yeah.
And like, the head teacher is all like, oh, I don't like him. And like, in a lot of other films, she would, like, no matter what he did, she would maintain her I don't like him kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then when he works hard to be a good teacher, she's all like, well, you've won me over.
Yeah.
Like, you're a good teacher and that's all I cared about.
So I
Which
just
is
want to point something out
eminently...
that sorry to cut you off. I just want to point out something that I spotted that I searched on the internet and no one else seems to have pointed out. And it's not important to this podcast. It's not even important to the plot of the film. But when he's initially going through the children who he thinks might be the children that are in witness protection on the run from the antagonist, one of the families he initially homes in on is a mother who we later find out is a victim of domestic abuse, and her
Yep.
son is also a victim of domestic abuse. And in the initial scene when he spots her car and she very quickly makes a getaway, whilst he's standing there bewildered that she drove off, behind him, a kid is just randomly hanging from a stop sign. So I just had to point out, because I Googled it, like, is that an Easter egg? What's happening? Is that just the best take they had? No one else seems to have seen it. I took a screenshot. I'll probably include it in the edit. Just a fun little detail.
Well, it sounds, from my memory of reading about it, it sounds like I think that a lot of the stuff with the kids was just, they just let the kids go off and do
Yeah, I
whatever
think
they
a lot of
wanted and talk
a lot
about
of
what
the
they wanted.
kids are actually talking about what their parents actually did and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the kids' lines are just the kids talking, and they
Yeah.
recorded it and stuff. So I think that that's, and the thing is that, like, it builds nicely at a decent pace. The plot, the two plot lines of him becoming a teacher and falling in love, and the guy coming to try and murder his love interest and steal her child, wind together pretty well.
Yeah.
The town's charming, the supporting cast are fun, like his partner has that boyfriend who he accidentally walks in on naked, and who is then like just this unbearable klutzy moron who keeps falling over. But he's only in 2 scenes, and it feels really weird to have given him that kind of personality trait when it's just
Yeah.
not relevant to anything at all.
No, but that's one thing that's kind of amazing about this, that everyone is like really fully formed. You even
Yeah.
feel like the assistant for the principal is a real person. She's in it for
Yeah.
7 seconds in total, but I believe all of these people have lives and loves and people they go home to. And I
Yeah,
quite
it's got
love that
some-
the antagonist is so weird.
Yeah. He's so weird, and his mum's so weird. And
She
there's
just
that bit,
runs over a police officer in broad
there's that bit where they
daylight.
go to the pharmacy and she's all like, "We need these 16 medications," and he's all like, "Mother, you always kept me trapped inside and gave me loads of medication, you know, and I'm fine." And she was all like, "Maybe you're fine because I kept you trapped inside and gave you all that medication." And he's all like, "I can't argue with that."
Yeah, it sound like it. Like, the sound logic, it
It's
works
just
for
like,
me.
it's so weird. And then he just like beats that guy unconscious to steal the present that he wanted
My
for his
favorite thing about
kids.
that
Like,
scene is like, why would you not just turn to the assistant and be like, "Hey, do you have another one of those or something very similar?" Because kids can't tell the damn difference.
yeah,
He's just like,
yeah.
"No, I'm going to assault this man in broad daylight."
But also, that guy's crazy. He's all like, "Hey, you bought that kid your train set." Like, it's not Christmas. He's all like, "Hey, can I have that toy that you bought your kid for 4 times the value of that toy you bought your kid?" And the guy's all like, "No, fuck
Yeah,
off."
just take the money, dude.
It's just like, just take the money and go to Target and get another one.
Yeah,
Get him something else. You know what I mean? Go take the money, go to your kid and give him $100. He'll probably like it more anyway.
Love that,
Like,
yeah.
but yeah, like, and there's kind of the Chekhov's gun stuff where the kid is planting antennas because he's got like a weird, he doesn't understand why him and his mum are on the run because
Yeah.
obviously she's not told him, so he thinks that, like, I don't know, aliens or government people are out to get him and he needs to set up antennas. But like, those moments that Arnold has with him are so warm and
Yeah.
kind and
And how
gentle.
he's the only kid that looks out for the ferret when they have the fire drills and things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fire drill thing's really satisfying. Like, that progression from him being awful at it to being the best at it, the kids marching, it's all just really enjoyable.
Yeah.
And then it comes to a surprisingly violent climax
Oh
where
my god! Like, it's funny because we've both seen this film decades ago. I would remember it if Arnold had died, but I was genuinely on the edge of my seat at that. The final stretch, that last act. You're like, he actually feels like there's real peril and there's danger, especially when he has no gun.
even though I didn't think he was going to die, like, he gets horribly shot like 3 times and is brutally injured, and his partner gets hit by a car, and then both of the villains get like brutally murdered. Like, it's, well, no, I guess the bad guy gets shot really badly after being bitten by a ferret, and then the mum just gets her head caved in with a bat, right? Like,
I mean, she's dead.
yeah, but it's like, it's so violent, and I was
really
just
is.
like, and it's funny because, like, that's what sells the peril in the moment.
Yeah.
But it's such an odd choice to have this kind of PG, or what most of the way through is like this PG family.
It's a real whiplash, yeah.
Comedy, and then have it be like, but I mean, you know, it's got to be horribly violent, otherwise there won't be any tension.
I mean, well,
So,
the funny thing is, like we said, it opens with that tone. So at the end, when it goes back to that tone, the film's kind of like, "We told you, it's only your fault if you're traumatized. We warned you what was happening."
And it's, the thing is though as well, it's really neatly written. Like, it wraps everything up. So like they, at the end, she comes to see him and she's all like, you come into the wedding, and it kind of, and it just gives us a little establishing, yeah, like, you know, we're friends now. He's learned to build friendships, and he goes back to the school to become a teacher because he's abandoned his life as a cop so that he can teach a bunch of
I mean,
children.
there's that lovely scene when the principal basically says to the public, like, he's a member of the community, make sure he knows that. And it's just like, there's lovely bits like that are just,
I love, and I love how he
sets everything up.
And he completely wins over the principal to the point where when the villain's doing a tour of the school, she's all like, well, you know, I know he's unconventional looking, but he's an excellent teacher. And she's like singing his praises to people she doesn't know. Like, and then, and then at the end, he comes back in, the kids are excited to see him. He goes and sees the lady, they make out. And honestly, like, I felt genuinely invested in his relationship with her. It's one 100%. Of the only times I've ever seen an action film where the two people kissed at the end, and I was all like,
I believe
good,
that.
I'm very glad about that. Like, I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I mean, the thing is, what I'd forgotten is that it's an Ivan Reitman film. So, like, obviously it's pretty good. Because he's really, really good.
Yeah. So 2 of the 3 films we'll talk about today are Ivan Reitman, and 2 of the 3 films are collaborations between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, but we will get back to that. What do you want to come next?
Let's do Last Action Hero.
Okay. So, I loved Last Action Hero. I loved it so much when I was a kid. And I guess it's mainly because it's about being a kid that gets to hang out with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And there is loads of stuff in this which I think still works. I'm just going to get this out of the way. And I complain a lot about kids in movies on this podcast. And I don't mean to. I love kids. I love movies. I just think like 87% of kids in movies are terrible. And you can add this kid to the list. He is the most annoying, obnoxious, protagonist I've seen in any of these movies until the next one. But for now, he's number one on the chart. He's moved past Newt and Eddie Furlong. He is in his own league of obnoxious one-liners. I know everything. I can't stand that kid.
I'm going to clip out the bits where you said, I love kids and I'm adding this kid to the list. And just make a really, really unpleasant
do that.
reaction clip that I can use.
Begging you not to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would say about Last Action Hero is that I don't hate movies. I mean, the thing is, what's interesting is that, like, I always think, like, generally when people talk to me about TV and movies, they're all like, oh yeah, it's about these kids. And I'm all like, nah, not watching it. Fucking hate things with kids in. Can't stand them. But like it's one of the reasons why I've never really engaged with Stranger Things, because I like a lot of it involves you watching a bunch of children. But yeah, what I would say is that in comparison to you, I've been finding the children in the films we've watched not particularly annoying. This child is probably more annoying than the others, but I didn't like hate every second he was on screen.
I didn't hate every second he was in, but there's two things about it. And here's the look. I know people are going to complain in the comments, so let me just say it now. I know he's a kid. I know he's excited to be in the movie, but there comes a point, I think, where Jack Slater even says it directly to him. The stuff that you find amusing is my life. The moments of like entertainment that are just making you roll on the floor laughing are my life. Like, I've lost my partners. I don't get to see my daughter that often. I get shot at on a daily basis. That's my life. And there's a point where, and I don't know, I'm not blaming the kid, it's the writers, but like, the kid never really acknowledges that until the end. And so it just comes to a point when it's like, you're just laughing at this guy and you've basically just thrown him into this existential crisis where he has to question his very existence. But to you, it's just really cool because you've watched it on VHS.
I mean, also what I would say is being a kid isn't an excuse for being shit. Like, go watch Empire of the Sun. Like, kids can act. Like, and you know, if you can't get a kid who can act, that's a you problem, not a children problem. Like, there are definitely children out there who can act. So if you choose a crap one, then that's on you. What I would say is that, like, it's definitely, I mean, firstly, it's way too long. It's so fucking long. And it's got like quite a lot of sequences which are really repetitive and a little bit redundant. And it's so meta in a way that just wasn't popular.
I was going to say, it's actually quite far ahead in that respect, that, you know, we're dealing with multiverses and everything now. This is a film where the antagonist hypothesizes about the possibility of making a super team with Dracula and Freddy Krueger. You know,
it's like Deadpool levels of winking at the screen. Like,
Stallone is playing the Terminator.
Yeah, like, it's
Sharon Stone's character from Basic Instinct walks past the screen and is immediately followed
Robert Patrick's in it as the T-1000. Like, there's a cartoon
Humphrey Bogart
cat
is in it.
Yeah. There's Hunger. Yeah, and they're literally just all like, you're partnered up with the black and white version of Humphrey Bogart. Like, it's not even like it's like any sort of like intelligent joke. It's just like, in this world, and like, what I don't understand about that is it's just a bit like, what kind of movie is this? Because like, in a movie that seems to be an Arnold Schwarzenegger action film, if they were all like, so it's like an Arnold Schwarzenegger action film, he's got a hot teenage daughter, and he shoots a lot of people, he gets blown up, there's a cartoon talking cat, I would be all like, I'm sensing some tonal oddness here.
Yeah, and the thing is, you could have included all those details with like one line of dialogue, which is that maybe, I don't know, when the ticket first gets activated, Danny gets flung through a bunch of films before he lands in the Jack Slater film, and he's brought them with him. You know what I mean? So that explains why there's a talking cat and Humphrey Bogart. It's just an Arnold Schwarzenegger film. And like, also, every woman in that universe seems to have some kind of weird dominatrix latex outfit going on.
Like, they are all just wearing like, and it's weird because they're all like wearing, all the police wearing like BDSM gear. Yeah. And then like, when the men are just
regular clothes.
And when they go to the video store, all the women are dressed like Star Trek extras. Like, it's like a future Total Recall kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like, I don't understand what's happening here.
Yeah,
it seems
I don't know
like
what the mechanics of this place are.
Yeah. But obviously, Charles Dance is pretty good.
He's so good at it.
He's pretty compelling and interesting.
Ian McKellen's great for the 12 seconds he's in it.
Yep. It's got some really good... I really enjoyed the sequence where it turns out that there's a bunch of nerve gas hidden in the Mafia guy's corpse, and then they have to try and resolve that by getting a crane and throwing the corpse onto the crane, but then Arnold gets stuck on the crane with the corpse. There are loads of really funny. There's a really funny bit after that where he swims out of the tar pit and then he like rubs a rag on his face and he's just completely clean.
Yeah.
And then his daughter. There's that bit where he opens up the wardrobe and he's got all just the same outfit over and over again, Homer Simpson style.
Yeah.
Like there's lots and lots of funny little meta jokes in it which work very, very well.
Yeah.
And it is engaging a lot of the time. The problem is that it spends quite a long time at the start setting up the premise.
Yeah.
And establishing characters who you assume are going to be important later on, but who really, Nick and his mum really aren't very important later on. Yeah. There's quite a lot of stuff like that where it feels like maybe the script had gone in different directions during the writing process.
This is one of those films that was presented to him as an R-rated film. And he was on his kick of like, I want to do family films. So he whittled it down to a lot more like it's a buddy movie between me and the kid. And so he had a lot of input and a lot of things. So you can tell, yeah, there's been parts where he's gone, all right, we'll keep that, but tone it down, or we'll get rid of this and replace it. So it is a bit of a Frankenstein's monster of his ideas with the initial script.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that there's the bit when he's playing himself and won't stop talking about Planet Hollywood, and his wife's all like, "Oh my god, stop talking about fucking Planet Hollywood." It's really funny. It's really, really funny. It's also the most 1993 thing in the world because it's got a bunch of celebrity cameos.
Yeah,
and it's like Jim Belushi and like MC Hammer.
Yeah,
and I can't remember who else, but like it
Van
is
Damme's
like
in it for a second.
Yeah. Tina Turner's in it very briefly.
Yeah, I do like that. I like that she's just hinted at, and then you never see her again.
Yeah, she's like the police chief in Jack Slater 2 that we see clips of. She's the mayor, but then she's not in the Jack Slater film that we are seeing the plot of. So that's not relevant. And yeah. Like it is funny in a lot of places.
One thing I'm going to give it credit for, we all, like, whenever anyone hears the monologues, the word monologue now, we all instantly think of The Incredibles. But Jack Slater did it first.
Yeah, the whole monologuing joke is just stolen wholesale from Last Action Hero and The Incredibles, apparently. And there's quite a lot of stuff like that. He holds up the picture of the word fuck and tries to get Arnold to read it, but he can't. Yeah. Like, there's quite a lot of that meta humor, which I feel like I've seen again in better received movies. That people, like the Incredibles joke that people now reference, and they're all like, "Oh yeah, that's such a true thing," but they are all here first.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say for the people that don't know, there might be people of a certain age who weren't alive when this film came out and maybe not aware. This film, unfortunately, was released around the same time as a little-known indie film called Jurassic Park. So it was already fighting an uphill battle because it hadn't tested very well with audiences. I think, like Patrick says, it was so meta so early that a lot of audiences were taking it at face value and then didn't know what to make of it. So you add that, they don't know how to market it, audiences don't know how to interpret it, and then Jurassic Park comes along like a week later and just destroys any potential box office for this.
And it's got like some really nice ideas. The bit when they go into the real world, he has again another lovely vulnerable scene where he comes to the realization that his life isn't real and he has to talk about that, and that's really like Nick's all like, "Oh, this must be amazing for you," and he's all like, "No, it's not amazing for me. My life's a lie."
Yeah, I mean, when the second person he meets in that universe says to him, "I've never met a fictional character," it's like, dude, ouch.
Yeah, and he plays that really, really well, and I really like what's it called? Like quite a lot of the stuff when he's in the real world. The scene which he has with the kid's mum is really good.
Yeah.
And when he's hearing different kinds of music, because the only music he's ever heard is the rock and roll music from the soundtrack of his movies, and so he's hearing classical music for the first time, and he loves it. Like that stuff's really good and really interesting.
When he meets Arnold Schwarzenegger, there's a great bit of acting when he says, "I don't like you. You've caused me nothing but pain."
Yeah. And like, and the bits where there's a bit where he's trying to shoot at a car and it doesn't explode, and the bit where he plays chicken and just kills the guy by like, because he's not got airbags. Like, I think what's upsetting about it is that the premise, the setup's really, really long-winded, and then the bit where they're in the film is really long-winded and
Yeah,
feels like it takes way too long to get to the point of them actually being a team and him actually believing it. And then the bit where they go into the real world at the end is like really rushed, and like there's loads of fun ideas there that never get any time to be explored. And it's kind of like, again, it feels like with a couple more passes at the script, it could be something really, really good.
agreed.
With the cast it's got and the premise and the way that it works and the budget, like, it
Yeah.
could be something
Yeah, I
really
mean, it's funny, like,
special.
it's one thing that I don't know if this kind of stuck out to you. There is a great scene where it's Arnie's Macbeth. Um,
Yeah, that's
and
so funny. Oh
it is
my
funny,
god.
but here's the thing, right? So it's directed in such a weird way. You can't tell if Danny is watching Macbeth, gets bored, and then imagines what it would be like if Arnie was in it, or like, you know what I mean? It feels like they filmed it and then were like, wait, how does this fit into the rest of the
Yeah, where
film?
does this go?
Yeah,
Like,
and it's like you said, because it was so early in a modern setting, you could just that could just have been a Tropic Thunder thing where the film opens with that trailer, and you maybe could have had 3 or 4 things like that that established the humor, but it was so early. I don't think they knew how to market it. Like yeah, so it's kind of all over the
yeah.
place. And like you said, there are seeds of really interesting things in the film.
And like the bit at the end, like the fact that the resolution is that he has forgotten that there's another half of the ticket, and then the Grim Reaper tells him before just, I guess, heading off into the world.
I mean,
Um,
I think he's just going to murder random people in New York.
yeah, and like that's fucking wild, isn't it? Like, and it's just like there's little things like that that feel like they're not quite hung together. Like at the end, they need somebody to tell him rather
Yeah,
than him just figuring it out himself. It's
yeah,
like, and there's a lot of stuff like that where it's just not quite there. Like there's a bit where the villain pretends that he's forgotten that his gun won't reload and needs reloading, and then uses that to trick them. And it feels like a callback to an earlier scene where the villain didn't realize that his gun needed reloading, except that we don't have that scene.
yeah,
um, and there's just, yeah, there's like lots of little things like that that feel like they're like 3/4 finished, and it's a real shame because it's got a lot of stuff going on that I really enjoyed,
yeah.
but it's overly long and kind of confusing. And it feels, what I would say is the emotional resolution where he tells the kid to go off and live his life and the kid has to leave him behind in fictional world, really good, really
Yeah.
really got me again, like it was a real moment there. And but then it just, then again, then it just kind of ends. It's just like, yeah, now it's over, and it's just a bit like, I don't know, it feels like there needs to be like a little bit more resolution for is the kid called Danny?
I was calling him Danny, but you said Nick. I'm like, I don't know. I'll be honest with you.
No,
I
Nick
don't
is the
care.
old man who owns the cinema.
Cool. I was saying Danny. I could just be saying it because he seems like a Danny to me. You know,
He looks like a Danny.
he's got
Sure,
generic
whatever.
Danniness about him.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. The reality of it
That
is
kid does
that
not matter at all.
we both watched the film in the
He's
last.
Danny. He's Danny.
We both watched the film in the last week and don't remember his name. I remember the name of the old man who ran the cinema,
Yeah.
but not the main character. So that's not a great sign. But yeah, it's a film filled with interesting ideas that doesn't come together at all.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. So then, twins.
Twins. Cool. So I made notes. Okay.
Sure.
My notes are: I dislike the narration.
But
I
the
really dislike the
narration's
narration.
but it's so weird. Like,
It is weird. But it definitely feels like they just started filming, and then when they were finished, they were like, "Wait, there's a lot of stuff we haven't explained."
can you imagine pitching a movie where you're all like, okay, so we open on a genetic testing facility where they're trying to breed the perfect human?
My second note is that a beaker of cum.
Yeah, I think it's a big flask full of jizz.
It's just wild that as one of the first things you see in this Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
The young version of their mum is Heather Graham.
Heather Graham. Yeah, that was my
right.
third
That's
note.
weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because she's not credited.
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't like, and I was looking at it, and I was like, it's definitely Heather Graham, but
That's
like,
definitely
she's
yeah.
not.
That's what,
Yeah,
yeah,
she's
'cause
not
when you
on the
Google the mum's name, it just shows you the actress who plays her for the majority of the movie.
Just shows the adult woman. Yeah, like, I think that it's one of the funniest films we've watched since we started doing the podcast.
Honestly, there is so much that is so good, and we keep talking about Arnold and his vulnerability, but honestly, this is probably the best display of his range, of his comic timing. He is so likable. He is honestly so believable as this wide-eyed, naive. Everything is
he's like a
amazing.
child,
He
right?
really
Like
is.
he's like a child roaming around the world for the first time.
And it's
I
lovely to
love
watch.
Yeah, and it's really charming. And obviously, because he's the strongest man on Earth, he's not in any peril. Like, normally what you would have would scenes where people tricked him or stole from him or whatever, but it just doesn't work because every time somebody tries to mug him and he grabs them so hard that they fall off their motorbike.
I
And he's
did
just all like,
nothing. The pavement was his enemy is top
yeah.
5 Arnie quotes. It's
And he's
so
just all
funny.
like, and the fact that then afterwards he's all like, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." And it's just like, it's just so like, it's so charming. And Danny DeVito is so funny. Like
Honestly, Danny DeVito is always amazing. But
he's the slimiest, sleaziest piece of shit
there's
you've
a moment
ever
when he's
met.
like, I think it's one of the first scenes. He's getting kicked out of like someone he's trying to hustle, and he goes, "Those are quality socks," which had me. I don't know why, but it had me falling over. And then
Yeah,
immediately, a police officer calls him up on his disability, like his driving pass, and it's like, "What's your disability?" To which he immediately responds, "Do I look normal to you?"
yeah. Yeah. And I love that as well. Like the premise is that they were the twins separated at birth after an experiment, and then Arnold knows this because he was raised by the science people on Science Island,
Yeah,
um, and was raised to be the perfect human. But Danny DeVito has no idea, and then. For the first like half of the film, he also just doesn't believe that because he's all like, "That's fucking insane.
yeah.
Why would
Why
anybody
would we
do
be
that?
related? Yeah,
Yeah, but then he thinks that Arnold's character is going to be useful to have around because he's so strong. So he just lets him hang out with him and pretends that he also thinks he's his brother.
yeah.
But like from so
There's a
early
few things
on,
I want to pick about that I shouldn't because this is just stupid comedy. But the mum was lied to. I'm sorry. Did she think initially that these scientists were going to invest millions of dollars into creating this superhuman and then just be like, yeah, go raise the kids? We just wanted to see what would happen. Like,
I think it's
what was
probably
the
more.
deal there?
I think it's more likely that they told her that she would be around the kids while the experiment was ongoing, and then they
Yeah,
didn't actually
maybe.
want her to be, so they just lied to her and told her the kids were dead so
Yeah.
they could take them, right? Like, I think it's unbelievably cruel note that, like, sure, lie to her about Arnold's character being dead because they need him for the experiment, but like the other kid, they
Yeah.
just they just tell her is dead and then put in an orphanage,
Yeah, I mean,
which
and
is
it's
just
wild because, like, also, they've invested millions in this, and then they just look at Danny DeVito and go, oh, he's garbage genes. Just leave him
yeah.
in North.
He's got all the garbage genes. Let's just get rid of him. And like the way that that's like explained to us is that when they're both babies, Danny DeVito kicks him, and they're all like, "Bad baby, get rid."
It's Hugo from The Simpsons, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. But in fairness, Arnold does bring that up at some point where he's all like, I'm all the garbage. And he's all like, you had no, like, I was raised in the best possible environment and you were raised in the worst. Like, it's not fair to compare us at
Yeah.
all. And like, there's that moment, there was a really funny moment where I think I've been so conditioned by modern movies to expect everything to be undercut with a fucking joke or
I
a
know
horrible thing.
exactly what you're talking about. It's when
But
he
there's
said
that
they're going
moment
to be
where he tells
family.
him that they could be a family, and Danny DeVito looks at him and is all like, "Really?" And you think it's going to be a turn where he gets angry or a joke, and he's just really heartfelt about wanting a family, and then they just hug, and it's
Yeah,
just
I was.
so
You've
lovely.
taken the words right out of my mouth. I was waiting for Danny to be like, "Give me a break," and like, no, he's just so happy. These are the words he's
Yeah,
been longing to hear. And even before
it's
that, there's a few moments when Danny DeVito keeps giving him the slip, and then Arnold finds him, and he's like, "How did you find me?" He's like, "You're my brother. I knew where you'd be." And like, he goes to the orphanage, and he knows what. I mean, it's a very funny reason because he's right, but for the wrong reasons. But he at least knows where his brother would have slept.
yeah.
You know, it's just like really cute things like that. Yeah, I
Well, and
did not think I was
also
going to enjoy this as much as I did.
all the way through, the two of them mirror each other's movements in a really, really incredibly impressive way,
Yes.
which is really funny and really charming. And yet, like, I think that like that's really good. The plot is fucking insane. Like, the plot is like it starts off with the Jizz Cup and Science Island, and then he goes and finds him. and then Danny DeVito steals a car with some sort of jet engine in the boot, and then he finds out that it's supposed to be sold to somebody, so he pretends to be the guy who's selling it, and they go on a road trip, and on the way on the road trip they try and find their mom and the scientist who made them, but then he's going to do a back alley jet engine deal with some sort of aerospace company, and then and it's so it's really really weird tonally, where the guys in the aerospace deal just get shot in the head and killed in a really brutally violent way.
Yeah.
But then they defeat the bad guy by dropping a really big pile of chains on him.
And then also doing a great pun as if they've not just murdered a man.
Yeah,
He's got a lot on his mind.
And it goes on and on. The chain is just falling and crushing him to death. And it's just it's such a weird tone for a movie to take. And I love it so much. It's so funny.
It really
and
is.
It's consistently funny all the way through, but I think what's really impressive about it is that it's often funny for very different reasons. It's got physical comedy, and it's got absurdist comedy, and it's got just really well written jokes, and it's got really funny comic performances, but it's also just got insane ideas. I also appreciated, so Arnold's love interest, obviously he's kind of an innocent babyish character. He's an adult man, but he's never lived in the real world.
Yeah.
And he meets that lady, and she's just unbelievably horny from the moment they meet, and she's very much like the male characters normally are in this film, where she meets him, spies on him changing, and then is immediately just all hey, want a bone? And there's just there's no, and their relationship has zero road bumps. They meet, she thinks he's super hot. She encourage his, they dance, and he copies his brother, so he squeezes her ass, and she's super into that. Then they just have sex, and then they're in love, and everything's fine. And I was just oh, okay, that's a refreshingly weird plot for a romantic subplot, isn't it?
I mean, although I think if you look at 80s and 90s Arnie, it's very easy to believe that woman would look at him and be yeah, let's do this.
Well, what's interesting as well, though, is that there's a really weird thing where, it's kind of, obviously it's kind of male gazy about her, but it's much leerier about Arnie.
Yeah.
It's got some shots of her where it's where she's got short skirts or whatever on, and there's one where she's just talking to him, on all fours, facing away from him with her butt
lingerie, yeah, exactly.
Just being all but it's funny because obviously, it's so on the nose. It's not like she's being all oh, I'm so innocent, maybe you could seduce me. She's being all hey, dude, here's my whole butt. Come get in bed with me. And he's the innocent one who's all oh, I'm not sure what to do. And it's that's really charming and funny. But it's just full of shots of him in tight shirts and stuff. And it keeps on zooming in on his calves. All the way through, he's wearing these shorts, and it keeps on doing these close-ups of how muscular his calves are. And I was all man, he's jacked, isn't he?
Yeah,
fucking
jacked.
Yeah, and
honestly, there was never a better time to have made that film, because actually I'd say Danny DeVito is maybe at peak Danny DeVito now, but there was just something about him at that time, and Arnie at that time. It's just perfect. It's just yeah.
The shopping montage, which, is an 80s staple, which is generally just kind of boring, is so charming and so funny. And then afterwards, when they're both wearing their new matching clothes and they're really excited about it, and he's teaching them how to walk. Yeah, every single, this one flew by. I couldn't believe how quickly it went. And again, then it had the surprisingly effective emotional resolution with the reunion with their mom at the end, which was really sweet.
That scene when she doesn't need to say who she is, and they just look at each other, and then they look at her, and they're all trying not to cry. I love this movie.
It was so good. And then it has that insane, and then they both had kids with their girlfriends, and they all had twins, and now they've got 4 kids. Which is, and they're going to the carousel with their reunited mum, and the man from Science Island, who we seem to be forgiving for his part in the science.
What happened to the guy who should have been their dad? Why didn't he get a second chance? He was genuinely in love with their mother, and he seemed really happy to meet Arnie.
Yeah. Yeah,
that scene when they meet and they're looking at each other, and he's like, "Dad, oh man, I love this movie."
Yeah, and that also had some really good mirroring of their performances. It was so funny all the way through.
Did you read about the potential sequel that just never ended up happening?
Yeah, with Eddie Murphy.
Man, they should have made that.
Yeah, I would really have liked that. But like, also, I really liked the sub antagonists who were the people who were after Danny DeVito for money, who just got slowly more and more horribly injured every time they showed up. Like at first, one of them got beaten up, and then he came back in a neck brace with his brothers, and they all got shot in the legs, and then they all turn up in casts and braces and
Well,
just
I
get the
love
shit
that.
beaten out of them again.
I love that to establish that it's them the next time you see them. It starts at the casts and the crutches,
Yes,
so you
it
immediately know who's
starts
in
at
the
the
club with them.
wounds. Um, Also, like it's a side note, but the dance sequence was good, wasn't it? Like
Yeah,
the dance sequence is surprisingly well choreographed and done. Like
yeah.
Danny DeVito is so. I think what's amazing about Danny DeVito is that he's the ugliest, weirdest looking man on earth, and he's so charming that you never once don't believe that he would be a hit with all these ladies.
I know you don't watch it, but you've just reminded me of one of my favorite "It's Always Sunny" clips.
People don't trust you, Frank. You're a piece of shit. And you're ugly. And you ooze sleaze. And you're very, very ugly.
But like, it's totally believable in this that
Yes.
he would have a girlfriend and a mistress and other people he was hitting on because he's so fucking charming and funny and he's a great dancer and he's like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's really, really brilliant. I love his weird business that he's running where he's like a sports agent, but there's nothing in the office because it's all been repossessed. Like, it's just, and it's full of those neat little details. Like the antagonist guy who's chasing them, who tries to murder them,
It was
is like
insane.
is insane and genuinely threatening and really scary. That scene where he rings up to find out how much he's going to get paid, and then he realizes that it's $5 million with the
He can
negotiation.
barely speak when he finds out.
And he's like, he thinks he's negotiated down to $5,000, and then he's all like, you can only have $5 million, and he's just all like. It's so fucking funny. And yeah, like the whole thing.
Also,
Like,
I gotta say, Arnie, like, I love the fact he's playing a genius in this, and they give him some really good lines. One is like the recurring thing of him knowing the rules of negotiation, and so knowing when someone's bluffing. And there's a great introduction to that where he explains to someone, "I'm not threatened by you at all because you've just shown your hand." And then he says to him, "You have no respect for logic, and I have no respect for people who have no respect for logic." He has so many great lines in this movie, and he delivers them so well.
and there's that lovely bit where they're all drinking together and he gets all drunk and he's talking about how, and he's got that really vulnerable moment where he's talking about he only knows things in theory and he's never known anything in practice. And like, all of that stuff is really, really well done. I did think, given how hard he held onto that weird suitcase he had, that it was going to be relevant to the plot at some point.
Yeah,
but
it's not.
But it isn't.
Yeah.
No. But like, and again, like, it's just like Danny DeVito's character arc is really, really believable. I love the way he responds to them thinking that their mum is dead. Like, it's really visceral and emotional and realistic and charming. And yeah, like, it's just, it's really well paced. It's really funny. It's really weird. It's I just like I can't fault it. It's like a 10 out of 10 comedy movie. I would recommend it to anybody.
Like I said initially, this was the one of the three that I was the least looking forward to. It's one of those films as well. I actually don't think I'd seen it prior to this in one sitting. It's always been on BBC in the afternoon at some point. So I'd watch the first half and drift off, or watch the second half and not really be into it because I'd missed the first half. I'd never really connected with it, but I'm so glad you made us watch this, man. It's such a feel-good movie.
Of the three of them, this was the one that I knew was going to be great because I didn't see this until I was quite a lot older. I only watched this for the first time about 5 years ago, and I remember thinking it was great, but like, I didn't watch it with like an analytical eye. Then I wasn't like I wasn't like, what's good about this? Whereas like watching it for this, it's just so funny and well written.
Really,
like Ivan Reitman it's really underrated. I think.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that it's insane to say that about the guy who directed Ghostbusters.
No, but the thing is, he is, because everyone just thinks Ghostbusters, and it's like, no, this dude has bangers on deck. Like, he's
yeah. What I would say is, Twins better than Ghostbusters. Like, literally, like I love Ghostbusters.
Here's the thing about Ghostbusters. So the thing that works about Ghostbusters is also the thing that works against it, which is that essentially there is no plot. It's just SNL dudes riffing for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Which is great, but plot's nice also too sometimes.
What I would say about Ghostbusters is that when I rewatch it, what I always realize is it's like you could just write on the screen, Bill Murray sure is funnier than the rest of these guys. Because, like, when Bill Murray's just riffing on the screen, it's fine. It's always fine. It's so funny. It's one of the funny. And even when he's in a scene with other people, it's fine. But every time Bill Murray leaves, I'm all like, man, I wish Bill Murray was back. Like, this is like, whereas in this film, even the people in bit parts do their job really, really well.
Yes.
And like, and it never cuts away to anything that I'm like, oh no, not these guys. It's all good all the time. And yeah, like I genuinely think this is Ivan Reitman's best movie. And
Yeah, you might be right.
really enjoyed it all the way through.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Man, that was a good episode, man. Patrick, what's really good?
Well, okay, so I've got a couple of things, but you know what's really good is The Greatest Showman.
Really?
Yeah. So I watched The Greatest Showman about 4 or 5 years ago with Heath because he wanted to watch it. And you know when you watch things with kids, you're not necessarily looking at them in a particularly critical way, right? And since then, so I really love musical soundtracks. So since then, I've listened to the soundtrack of The Greatest Showman hundreds of times. I listen to it all the time, the whole soundtrack. But I couldn't remember the whole plot of the film. And on Saturday, I was like quite drunk. Me and Beth put up the Christmas tree and had some drinks. And then Beth went to bed. And I was all like, I'm too drunk to like watch something that requires a lot of thinking, but I need something that's going to stimulate me. And in my mind, I was all like, I think I'll watch The Greatest Show. So me and Logan watched it together. Logan's never seen it before. And he was like blown away by the insanity of the plot. Like the fact that it hinges on this guy being just like somebody who commits massive bank fraud so that he can start his freak show is like, and what's wild about it is that like that would be a crazy plot for a film we were watching that was from late 80s, but this is from 2017 and somebody greenlit that plot. And like Logan was like at the end he was all like, I really thought that the fraud was going to come back on him at some point, and I was all like, yeah, seems like it should have, right? But no. Logan also was like, at the end, he was all like, man, for a film that's pretending to be about diversity, that sure was only about rich white guys. And I was all like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of criticisms you could make of the plot and the acting.
I don't know that much. Isn't it very loosely based on a real story, though?
It is, yeah. It's based on a real guy who was a total piece of shit. So the main character, but what's funny about it is that it presents the piece of shit main character as though he's the hero, despite the fact that he's just a complete butthole all the time, which I find kind of charming and hilarious. Yeah. But more than that, what I said to Logan afterwards was that like the soundtrack, the songs are just great. Like it's that rare musical where like there's one song I don't like. And it doesn't fall apart as the movie goes on at all. In fact, some of the best songs are right at the end. And that's like so rare for a musical. And like the songs are good, but it's also got some massive choreographed dance pieces with like 20, 30, 40, 50 dancers, which is what I'm looking for from musical. Like you can string that shit together with whatever plot you want. I don't care. The Sound of Music's a fucking insane movie. It doesn't make any difference to me. As long as what you've got is excellent songs, good performances vocally, and some big dance numbers, I'm pretty good. So I had a great time. And if you like musicals at all, I would very much recommend The Greatest Showman. And obviously what else is really good is, so there was the GTA 6 trailer. And in a week when the GTA 6 trailers came out, yes, very much so. I'll get to that in a second, but I would never, no matter what was at the Game Awards, I wasn't expecting anything to top the GTA 6 trailer. And then they announced a new Jet Set Radio game. And that is just, I can't even, like that trailer, I checked, and it has 5.5 seconds of Jet Set Radio footage in it, which I think I've probably watched 30 or 40 times now. And I've watched the rest of the trailer. So, because there's a Crazy Taxi game coming as well, which is,
I didn't know that.
If on its own, the Crazy Taxi game would have been enough to get me very excited. But no, there's 5 new Sega games coming. It's a Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, a new 3D Golden Axe game, a 2D Shinobi game, and I can't remember what the other one was. Something
Sega,
that
I'm begging you. I'm actually, lots of people are going to beg you for the opposite, but please listen to me. Please do not make a physical arcade cabinet for the new Crazy Taxi, because I can't afford to lose that much money. So don't do it, please. My family will never see me again if they make an arcade cabinet for the new one.
But yeah, I mean, but that trailer for me was enough for the whole thing. Like that would have been enough for me. Also announced the Game Awards was really good. Actually, I really enjoyed it. Did you watch any of it?
No, I've just been watching the highlights on social media.
So you know
One
they
thing
have
I've
the
seen.
bewildered.
Go on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
they have the bewildered celebrities come out.
Yes.
So Matthew McConaughey was first, and he came out and was all like, "Hey guys, I'm here reading off a script because they paid me to be in a game, and I'm really excited." He did not seem really excited.
He's not in the trailer as well, which is quite weird about him being.
He's not in the trailer. No, he doesn't appear to. I don't know which of those characters is him, but he like whatever. But I assumed that he was there. Bewildered celebrity for the year. So I was all like, oh yeah, Matthew McConaughey, that's fine. It's no Keanu Reeves, it's no Al Pacino, but whatever. And then a little bit later, Anthony Mackie came out. He was on drugs. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, he came out and he was all like, hey guys, hey, it's great to be here. And then he kept on talking to the audience, but you couldn't hear the audience. So he was just being all like, yeah, I know, I know. I've been in a lot of films, guys. Like, if you quote them all, there'll be no time for me to say anything else, guys. Come on. And he just like seemed like he was absolutely off his tits.
Allegedly.
He was there to talk about Twisted Metal, the TV show, which
actually has apparently done really well in the ratings.
Yeah, which he was there to announce that it's been renewed for a second season, which is insane.
So I don't know if you've seen any of it, but they released like one of these official clips, which is one of the worst 30 seconds of television I've ever seen.
Yeah, I saw that at a conference, and it was terrible.
Yeah, and everyone was like, "This is garbage. We will not be seated." And then a week later, the network was like, "This is our highest performing thing in 15 years." It's like, who is watching this?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, who cares about Twisted Metal? If you'd have asked me, are you the only person on earth who remembers Twisted Metal? I would have been all like, there's 50-50 chance. You know what I mean? Like, well, I don't get it. But, whatever. He turned up to announce that. That was fine. Then Simu Liu, the guy from Shang-Chi came out. Cool. He was announcing some game that he's working on, but took the opportunity to talk for like 5 minutes about how much he loved StarCraft, which didn't appear to be related to the game he was announcing or anything else. But it was quite charming because obviously it was like some genuine enthusiasm for games. Yeah. And then to announce Game of the Year, they had Timothée Chalamet, who I assume is promoting Wonka,
yeah.
But he didn't mention Wonka, and he didn't mention any games. He just came out and very professionally read the script, but really seemed like...
So, I mean, I'd read this before and I'd forgotten about it. It's now resurfacing because of this, but he's been, I'm not going to say prominent, but he's been a fairly committed YouTuber for a while, and it's about his game mods and his controller mods. So I think he's not a poser.
Well, he was smooth as shit. He seemed really like he was easily the best of them. Like he was very charming. Seemed like he really got what he was doing there, and was really good. But obviously the hit of it was when so Kojima came out to announce his new game. His new game is called. Trailer? I thought it was really good. I can't believe those are 3D renders. They look gorgeous. So he came out and announced. He showed a trailer which was just some people screaming. And then he said that it wasn't a game and it wasn't a film. It was a brand new type of entertainment that no one's ever seen before. And to help him with that, he'd got Jordan Peele. So then the door opened and Jordan Peele came out. And then Jordan Peele proceeded to talk about how much he loved Metal Gear Solid for like a solid 2 or 3 minutes. Just being like, man, I love Metal Gear so much, man. When I was playing Metal Gear Solid 2, that was the greatest time of my life. And then Kojima was all like, when I met Jordan, I felt like we'd known each other our whole lives and like we were already best friends. And then they hugged and left. And it was fucking insane. It was brilliant. And those moments are what I love about the Game Awards.
I actually wrote a video for the channel that I will at some point get around to finishing and uploading. But when I met Kojima, he asked me about my Wu-Tang hoodie, and then I just explained that I'm a really big Wu-Tang fan. And he kind of looked in the distance and was like, aren't we all? And then we took the picture, and I was like, what's happening?
Yeah,
I feel like all his experiences like that.
Yeah, he's so cool. And like there were I feel like there were a couple of other games that I saw there before we get onto GTA, so let's have a quick look. There was a new Mana game, which is a series of games that is... Historically, the Mana series was Square Enix's attempt to repeatedly rip off Zelda. So, like, the first one was a Game Boy game that ripped off the Zelda Game Boy game, and the second one was a SNES game that ripped off the Zelda SNES game, except it was multiplayer. That was its thing. It was like a local multiplayer version of Zelda. And then there was a couple more. There's a PS1 game, and there hasn't been a game since, I think there's not been a game for like 25 years. Slightly longer than the last time there was a Jet Set Radio game. And they announced a new one, which is a AAA PS5 game. Looks gorgeous. That was really enjoyable. What else was there? There was a game called The Last Berserker, which apparently is based on some sort of Korean mobile game, which I've never heard of. But it looked like Dark Souls, but with lovely cel shaded comic book graphics. So that was really nice. There was a game called Mech Break, which like it was like they really knew their audience. It was like there was like these shots of Gundam style mechs at the beginning, and then there was like no plot and nothing. It was just like shots of gorgeous mechs and gameplay of mechs shooting each other, and then shots of gorgeous mechs and then gameplay of mechs shooting each other, and then bosses that were giant mechs, and then one of them turned into a huge gun, and then it was just like mech break. Like I can totally imagine that for the majority of people it would have been, oh, that was a stupid trailer. But God, I was so excited all the way through. I love mechs. Oh my God! So that was really fun. There was a game called The Last Descendant, but apparently the beta's shite.
Oh.
And yeah, then there was the Sega stuff. So yeah, those were the things that I was really into. And then
Sweet.
there was the thing that I text you about. So do you want to cover that?
I will. GTA. Thoughts on GTA?
So
I mean, and can I just remind you? I did tell you that it wasn't going to come out for like another 2 years. So I was surprised when I went on Twitter the next day and everyone was like, 2025. I was like, what did you think? It's Rockstar. It wasn't going to come out next year.
I mean, what I think is that, like, normally they announce about a year out. So what I expected them to go, yeah, it's going to be out next November, and then delay it by 6 months or a year, because that's what they normally do.
Yeah.
I do wonder if the reason it says 2025 on it is because they've decided to build in 6 months worth of delay time.
I think maybe they're hedging their
to
bets.
the actual announced release date instead of just
I don't
delaying
think it will massively impact anyone's enjoyment of it. I do wonder though, with what we've seen in the clips of how heavily it's relying on social media and viral moments and things like that, is there a possibility a lot of the references are going to be dated by the time it's released? I mean, like I said, we are going to enjoy it no matter what. It'll be fun. But I think the fact there's already been, a tremendous amount of articles pointing out at least 10 viral moments that are referenced in the trailer. If you're doing a lot of that stuff,
I think
well
that the Florida Man meme is already kind of played out.
Yeah.
What I would say is, my expectation would be, based on the way that the trailer is framed, with all of those like TikTok style, Instagram reel style clips, I would bet money that you're going to be able to get out your phone in the game and record things and then upload them directly onto TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah.
And what Rockstar are going to do is flood social media with clips that look like they've come directly out of GTA into the real world.
Yeah.
And I think that what that will allow them to do is to create its own viral moments that won't need to be reliant on, like, at first it will be people being all like, oh hey, look, it's a reference to that thing, but before long it will be people recording their own things in GTA Online of them and their friends doing stuff. And I think that will be where the longevity of the game comes from.
100%. If they can tap into trends, that's all the advertising you need right there, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that that's a really smart idea. The trailer is gorgeous. It's probably like those renders in the OD trailer are nice, but they are CG renders that, if they are in the game, will be in a heavily like pre-rendered area.
Yeah.
Like, this is running in real time, and it is easily the best looking game I've ever seen.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, not just, obviously, like, it's not the best looking thing I've ever seen in terms of like rendering and physics and global illumination, but in terms of the number of individual actors and NPCs it has. The shot of the beach, and there's a shot of the waterfront street with people getting out of cars, and there's a couple of other shots that are unbelievable. And like, I saw a lot of people online being all like, oh well, it won't look like that when it comes out, and I was like, check your fucking receipts, man, because Rockstar don't lie. Like,
but even if it doesn't, if it looks a fraction as good of that, I mean, I think it's a wonderful time for us to be alive, that people are rolling their eyes at this. But I think we also, like, you need to look at what that means. We're now in an age where there are people saying it's not that impressive. Like, yes, it is. I mean, maybe some of the kids watching this, you've maybe always been in this generation. I grew up with the SNES. This is like like for me, you might as well be showing a caveman fire. This is phenomenal. I can't.
I mean,
wait
I'm
to
throwing
play
down the
this.
bet here. It will look like that. It will. It will look like that.
Yeah,
There might be.
there's a scary chance that it could look better. I mean, that
It
will
will
probably be
probably
due to
run at
horrible
30 frames a
crunch.
second. It will probably run at 30 frames a second, and I imagine that if there's like a PS5 Pro or something out next year, it might require that to look as good as it does in these trailers, but it will look that good when it's released. Rockstar don't do that. They're not Ubisoft.
Yeah.
They like Red Dead. When Red Dead came out, everybody said that it couldn't look that good, and it did. When GTA 5 came out, everybody said that it couldn't look that good, and it did. GTA 5.
What do you think the chances are of this running on the Steam Deck?
0. I mean, there's no PC release even announced.
Yeah,
it is Xbox and PlayStation only as far as we know at the moment, and I would bet they'll wait at least a year because then they can get people to buy it twice, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that it will probably look like it does in the trailer, possibly with slightly reduced lighting quality, but I don't think that they will. I think that like what you got to remember is that Red Dead is 7 years old. It's still one of the best looking games ever made and was designed for the PS4 and Xbox One. Like,
Yeah.
GTA 5 is still one of the best looking games in the world.
Yeah.
And it was made for the fucking PS3 and 360. Like,
Yeah.
this is the first time we've ever seen what Rockstar can do with these consoles. And it's
Yeah.
the first time in like 10 years that we've seen them approach a modern environment. Of course it looks incredible, because nowadays a lot of what makes graphics good isn't about technical prowess or ability, although they do have that. It's
Yeah.
about money and time, and nobody
And they-
has
and they
more
definitely
money
have
and
that.
time than Rockstar. Like,
Yeah.
it will look that good because they don't stand to gain anything from lying about what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
They stand to lose a huge amount. And if you look at the GTA 3 reveal, the GTA 5 reveal trailer, it looks like the game we got, and so does the Red Dead one. So I have no doubt whatsoever that this is going to look that good. It's just that because it took so long for this generation to get started, and because so many of the games we've had have been cross-gen, we've not really seen what the new consoles are even capable of that much. It doesn't look like the new Spider-Man game and Demon Souls and any other games that have been made purely for the new consoles look amazing, but most people haven't seen them because most people don't realize that they're playing games that were designed to run on the PS4 and have just been slightly upscaled. That's why it looks so good, because it's like natively designed for the new consoles. And yeah, I think I mean, obviously, we don't really have that much about it. I mean, I think that I like that there's a female protagonist. I like the tone of the trailer. It seems less stupid than the last one. I like the look of the world. Yeah. So anyway, I think that I'm actually writing and I've already written and I'm recording a video about GTA 5 for the channel.
Sweet.
So anything else I have to say, I will throw into there.
Like
So yeah, let's talk about what.
I said, like and subscribe to see that.
Oh yeah. Like and subscribe. Otherwise,
No. Okay. So what's really good for me this week is if you've been watching the show for the past few weeks, nothing's changed. Fargo is still the best thing on television, very closely followed by Nathan Fielder's The Curse. Rick and Morty had, I don't know if you heard about this, Rick and Morty had quite possibly one of their worst/weirdest episodes last week. I don't know if you remember from a few seasons back, there was a very quick post-credit scene about a potential action movie starring Ice-T, where we found out he was in fact made of ice, and it's from a planet.
Yeah.
Yes, so
water tea.
Water tea. Yes.
He was made into ice to punish him by his
was
father.
banished.
Right?
Exactly. Yes. So that went viral, and then Ice-T was like, "What the hell is this?" And he was on Twitter like, "What is wrong with you weirdos? Leave me alone." And apparently Dan Harmon reached out and was like, "Look, it's no malice. We just thought it would be a funny little play on your name." Anyway, long story short, they had a conversation, and the character is back, voiced by Ice-T.
Well, that sounds fun. I'd like that.
The idea is fun. The plot was that was last week's. This week's is one of the best episodes they've done in a long time. Very funny. Plays with like story structure, time loops, and I'm a sucker for a good time loop. Just very funny. Yeah, so far Rick and Morty's been great. Like I said, it's maybe I wouldn't say it's one bad episode. It was the worst of the bunch, but so far this season's been really consistent, really funny, really tightly written. Like I said, the curse is just getting better and better. Some really great performances, including Benny Safdie. And yeah, Fargo's best thing on television. That's it. I'm watching the same stuff every week. There's nothing that's really blowing my socks.
Oh, I
Go
started
ahead.
watching Reacher on Amazon Prime, which is based on the Jack Reacher thing that the books that Tom
Reach is
Cruise did a
great. I recommend
movie
Reach
of.
to anyone that hasn't
Yeah,
seen
I'd
it.
never
Yeah.
seen it before, but it's really good. I'm
Yeah.
really enjoying it. It's got like a kind of
So I do like Tom Cruise, but to anyone who's read the books, Tom Cruise is nothing like he's described in the books. Whereas the guy who they've cast, who's also from Teen Titans, is exactly like if you read the books, he's who you picture when you read them. The trailer that we didn't discuss, which leads me to my pick for next week, is that we are getting a new Blade game. Vampire Hunter has been absent from our screens, comic books, and TVs for a long time, so this looks awesome. Yeah, it's funny because Patrick knows I text him and I was kind of like, I don't really see the point of this. I don't know what this is, but he told me to do some research on the developers, and everyone online is like, yeah, no, these guys kick ass. I love Blade, so I don't know why I was mad about it. Yeah, so we're watching Blade. We're watching Blade next week.
all of them or just one.
Just one. I mean, actually, I was going to say there's only one, but two's pretty damn good. Let's watch 1 and 2.
The thing with 2 is that it's the laziest script of all time.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like
but
they
visually, I mean, it's got all the.
It's like they had like 15 minutes to write it, and they were all like, just take the script from the first movie and cross out where it says vampires and write super vampires, and then we'll go take some coke. Like it's like it's literally just repeats plot points as though they didn't happen in the first one. It's insane. I'm going to watch Trinity as well because
Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself.
Oh my god, it's so funny.
You'll get to the scene with his CGI eyes, and you'll be really upset.
It's so funny. Ryan Reynolds is so funny in it, man. Like,
okay, well, you can cover that part solo next week because I'm not
okay,
going to
cool.
do it to myself.
But yeah,
two PSAs. One is not so important. The other is super important. The first one is: did you know who plays the yellow M&M in those annoying M&M adverts?
No,
it's J.K. Simmons.
Oh, I like J.K. Simmons.
I do too. How much money are they giving him that they convinced him to do that?
I mean, it's not 1985, so I don't watch adverts. Like, where are you seeing adverts?
Well, I have to watch them because I watch a lot of YouTube. You love them. I love the
YouTube
big corporations
Premium.
you can't skip. No, I pay for nothings.
Dude, honestly, if I had to give up all of my streaming services except one, I'd keep YouTube Premium.
Yeah,
the amount of hours of YouTube I watch, I don't want to ad block because I want to participate in paying the creators of these things that I enjoy. But I'm not watching 30 seconds worth of adverts every 15 minutes when I'm watching a 6-hour fucking video. So yeah, no, I love premium.
Cool.
Did you watch the H Bomber Guy video about plagiarism this week?
No, I'll add that to the list.
That's a big yeah. So H Bomber Guy put up a new video. It's 4 hours long. It's about plagiarism on YouTube. It's really, really good. Most people will probably already have heard about it and seen it, but it's very, very worth watching.
I'll take a look.
So yeah, check that out. And
the second PSA I want to say for everyone, I mean, especially for people in the States, but I think it's probably going to go worldwide, is I don't know if many of you know, but HBO Max is just doing a massive cull of like their entire back catalog, and things that weren't available physically, only available for stream, have been deleted, and things that were available physically, they're not going to be doing any more pressings of those things, and they're removing them from Max. And the latest announcement is Watchmen. Watchmen is one of the best things HBO has done.
Brutal. That's decade. So good.
So if you are seeing this, jump on Amazon right now, buy yourself a copy on Blu-ray. You will not regret it. It's honestly one of the best comic book adaptations of all time.
Yeah, it's also definitely, it'll definitely be one of those things where in 10 years' time you're going to see that Blu-ray set on eBay for like 400 quid. So
yeah, so snap it up now because no one knows about it. It's on there for next to nothing. Just buy it. You will not.
But it will absolutely become a huge collector's item in the future. So yeah, do that. I would say about the Blade trailer as well. Like Arcane are unbelievable. Fucking Dishonored is so good, and the idea of them making a vampire hunting game with superpowers is so exciting.
I will recommend Nakey Jakey's latest upload, which is the latest in
the
an
Starfield
unintentional series about how several publishers have outdated gaming mechanics and structures. He didn't mean for it to be a series, but he keeps playing games that are AAA, hearing amazing reviews about them and being like, no, we shouldn't still be making games about this. And for those who don't know, Nakey Jakey is one of the best writers on YouTube. The way he balances actual educational material with his humor and pacing and editing he's second to none in my opinion. So it's well worth.
Yeah, he's excellent. He's really, really good, and it's a great video. Yeah,
cool. So yeah, next week I'll watch 2 Blades, and Patrick hates himself, so he'll watch 3. This is the part where I ask you to like, subscribe, and say thank you so much for your support. Thank you as well for the fantastic reception to the True Lies. Let us know if you want to see more stuff like that. We'll cover more stuff like that. This is the part where Patrick says something offensive that's going to get us demonetized in the future. So, Patrick, what have you got for us this week?
Nothing. I'm not going to say anything. I can't think of anything that's not really, really horrible.
Thank you.
And I don't want to go too far. What I would say is, never forget that Daniel has put that kid on his list. He's put this. He loves kids.
I hit my head.
He loves kids, and he's put that kid from Last Action Hero on his list.
This is the worst ending. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, and pay more for meat. Pay more for meat.
You bastard.